Well, it didn't show anything on my screen, so I was like, well, hopefully my headphones and stuff are on like they're supposed to be.
Oh, you're so far so good.
Okay, it's just like it may have been me, and I was like, okay, we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, the setup over here is, especially when I edit, it can be confusing. It goes back and forth. So sometimes it'll say, hey, you're going through the computer speakers, and then you manually switch it to headphones, and then sometimes you have to switch it with, I don't know. It's weird. I didn't set it up, but I am using it, and I'm figuring it out.
Nice.
Yeah. So welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast live on YouTube. W, why is today so great? Why is this week so great?
This is my favorite time of the year.
Come on!
It's week 0. Week 0, college football starts this week.
Dude. So I was invited or asked to play in a sand volleyball tournament, like just a co-ed, whatever, just have fun league this weekend. And you know what I said?
Sorry, you're going to have to pass?
First off, I'm terrible at volleyball, so I don't know why you'd want me. But the second thing is, I was like, listen, this is the first time we've had college football on a Saturday since January, and I'm gonna go ahead and have to pass. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. I've done the same thing.
Right, and so yeah, this is where we're gonna be at.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm so ready for college football. You know, writing my notes, I was like, oh man, it's time. It is college football time.
It's 100% college football time, and I'm so stoked. I'm excited. I'm reading all the stuff, all the projections, all the breakdowns.
I know, dude. Let's see what I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of notes. 7
pages of notes. That's more than the Power 5. Well, I mean, some of those teams are pretty big, those conferences.
And saying that's only like, and it's only like 3 or 4 schools per conference, because I knew, a big portion of those teams
we don't need to talk about Vandy.
Yeah, we're like, we know what's going to happen, so it doesn't really matter to bring them up. Yeah. But yeah.
No, I got you. Well, everyone who's joining the YouTube, I appreciate you whether you're watching it when we're live or you're watching it afterwards. Know that today is the college football breakdown episode, so I hope you're ready, because it's happening, and it's going to happen when we hit go on the recording. So a little bit before that, we'll probably jump in, and we're going to get into just some basic news notes, but most of our time today is 100% college football.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I got to mention it. Did you see the A's are officially eliminated from playoff contention? They lost the West.
I'm surprised it took this long.
I know, if you think about it. I'm kind of surprised too.
Yeah, that is very surprising. I mean, there's a couple of these teams that, we expected to kind of like fall off there, and they're hanging in. And I mean, the Reds, they're still in that playoff contention for that final wild card spot. The Diamondbacks, I don't know. I mean, they're still in the contention. They're still only a few games back at that final wild card spot, but man, they're just so, they're just not what they were doing a few months ago. Yeah. And
go ahead.
As a Dodgers fan, Dodgers are red hot, and I'm just like,
they are on fire.
I'm so worried that they peaked way too early.
But here's the thing: if you peak too early, if you have the right pieces, you should be fine. They have an ace, they have a number 2, they have a number 3 in the rotation. I think that means they should be able to do it come playoff time, even if they are out in a bit of a funk come late September. They'll be fine because they have the offense for it too. They're like top 3 in home runs. They have Freddie Freeman, who cannot get out. He looks like Tony Gwynn, but with power.
Yeah. My only thing is, but this is like the typical Dodger thing.
Yes.
August happens, starts, and then they go on this huge tear through August, early part of September, and then we see middle of September, end of September, and they are in this weird funk, and then you're looking at the playoffs and you go, okay, well, who's going to knock us out in the first round or second round of the playoffs, more than likely? And that's what I'm a little worried that's going to happen, because we've always had, we've had the pitching, we've had the offense usually, and now we've got it all again, but are we about a month early on the peak? If this was like middle of September and they were peaking now, then I'd be like, okay, everyone should be very scared, because the team is looking so good. So hopefully they just keep it going for like 3 months straight, and then we're fine. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, they have gotten 11.5 game lead out of nowhere. Just absolutely torn. Even the last week and a half is where a good majority of this has come from. But San Francisco still looks decent, like a playoff team. Arizona is found their footing. So Perry, Savannah Bananas, he's putting it in the chat. Pear Bear, the former guest of the show, all-time champ. He should really change his Facebook name to all-time champ. But yeah, he is all about that Savannah Bananas, and we talked about it. I think we're a little bit differing on it, but
I mean, I'd watch it. Yeah, I'm all for watching it.
Yeah,
but no, I want to say the Dodgers lost 2 games in the month of August so far, and that's it.
Yeah, they've been about as hot as the weather.
Yeah, dude. We hit 120 heat index today.
It's disgusting. It was 110 here, if that helps. And it's never 110.
I saw, Lawrence, Kansas. They had a heat index day of 134.
They should have just said heat index. Stupid.
Yeah. I'm like, how does that happen? Did something, someone have like the heater set up right next to the thermometer or something?
Here's what happened. The humidity when I woke up this morning was in the 90+ percentile. 90+%. Yeah. I woke up and I'm like, why are my windows all foggy? Because it's disgusting right now. And I feel bad. Yesterday, I don't know, you probably didn't watch the Cardinals game because why would you? They were playing the Mets. Nobody cares. 2 of the worst teams this year. But it looked like there was like maybe 10,000 fans in that stadium. But they had like 34,000 or something like that. An absurd number of paid tickets. And so the paid attendance looks better. But I was like, here's what sucked is that game was for the Cardinals Hall of Fame induction. And it's sad to see because that was, they won the game. It was the only game in the series against the Mets that they won, but it was that stupid hot as 110 out there, and that's in the shade. So it was just a bad day for baseball. So we don't need to talk about the Cardinals anymore. I
went and played pickleball last night, and
outside.
Dude, it looked like I had jumped in a swimming pool. By the time I was done, I was that wet. Yeah, it was, and we went at like 7:30 at night.
Oh my, no. It's not worth it, man. Stay inside. AC
it was brutal.
Yeah. What up, Colin? Welcome back.
Colin.
Yeah. So we don't have to talk anymore about the Cardinals or Mets or Padres, but I do want to. Dude, are you watching the Mariners right now? Dude,
dude.
They're coming along.
Friggin' Julio Rodriguez is scorching hot right now, and not looking good right now as it sits for Colin's Blue Jays, as now they are on the outside looking in because of this hot run by the Mariners.
And the hardest part, Colin, I wonder if you're worried about this, or do you feel okay because the Rays are the Rays right now, and they've lost their shortstop for the foreseeable future, if not ever, and then they don't have pitching, so it's 5.5 games is what they're behind the Rays as we're talking about this, which is the team I think they need to focus on. It's not the Astros. It's not the Mariners. Let the Mariners be. It's got to be the Rays. They got to catch the Rays.
That's what I think. I think that the Rays, we talked about this. You lose, what was it now, 4 pitchers this year to Tommy John, starting pitchers, 3 starting pitchers to Tommy John surgery this year. And now you throw in your all-star shortstop, and he may never ever see the field again in Major League Baseball. And that's got to take a lot of wind out of your sail. I mean, they did go on a decent run there where they won, 8 out of 10. But you got to think eventually that's going to hit them sometime. And if you're Blue Jays, you're hoping it's here in the next week or so when they start slumping, and you better hope that you're starting to figure things out. You got Bo Bichette back the other day, so hopefully that helps with the offensive woes that you were having. But man, the Mariners are trying to make a commotion here towards the end of the regular season and push a team or 2 out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and hey, who knows? They could. I think most of the playoffs have almost been not locked up, but they're getting pretty close to being locked up. The Guardians are not probably making a run at the end. It's wild to think that the Tigers are a game and a half behind the Guardians. The Guardians are in second, only 6 games back. So. But it looks like it's it's a 3-team race for that last wild card spot in the AL, and in the NL, it's pretty much Braves, Dodgers, Brewers should win out this one. Cubs could catch fire late, but I don't see it, and I think the Reds are who they are. They're about a year and a half early for them, so it's weird. Poor Padres, 18 games Padres behind first place.
I love it.
Love it. Okay. Any other things on baseball before we kind of move on? We can hit some NFL things real quick if you want.
I'm gonna say I don't got nothing baseball. You did get the big. Did you see the whole Jonathan Taylor thing right before we went on?
Oh, they grant him the opportunity to seek the trade. Is that what you're talking about? Because I was like,
yeah, no. I mean, granted, it may not be like it's guaranteed he's getting traded. We saw this happen with Austin Eckler. Oh, you can go ahead and look for a trade, but we'll see what happens. But at least they're allowing him to look elsewhere and possibly get a trade done. So maybe Irsay changes his ways and does ship out Taylor.
He might ship him out, but
highly
not changing his way.
Highly doubt it. Yeah, Irsay not changing his ways. I phrased that wrong.
Yeah.
But
what's the opportunity that he has? The best chance that he can to get out? Like, is there a team out there? I think we talked
the
about
Dolphins.
You still think it's the Dolphins? Okay.
I think it's the Dolphins because Devon Achane, depending on what comes of the MRI, he got hurt this weekend during the preseason, hurt his shoulder, and it was kind of no one really saw it happen. He got hit on the sideline after a big run, and then he didn't come back in the game. And supposedly they took him back there, did an MRI today or yesterday. I haven't seen anything about that, but man, if he goes down, you really don't have like a big certainty at running back with Jeff Wilson, who has injury issues, Raheem Mostert, who has injury issues. That's an offense that needs running game. Coming from the Kyle Shanahan tree, Mike McDaniels likes to run the football, and what better way to do it than with one of the best running backs in NFL?
Very true. Very true. And that would really put that offense, I think, up there as like, man, you got to look out for this top skill positions. The quarterback, as long as Tua is healthy. And if you had JT in there, they're like, this is a pretty solid team. And I think people are thinking that right now. I think the reason why I don't know that it'll actually work for Miami is they were so slow to even try to sign anyone in the offseason anyway. They could have had Dalvin. They could have had Zeke if they really wanted him. I don't think anybody really wants Zeke at this point except maybe the Patriots. But it's just one of those things that I don't know that they want to enough.
Yeah, no, I get, and it is running backs. The running backs are not a premier position now in the NFL, and yeah, you're going to have to pay this guy, and so you have to look at it going, okay, am I trading for him, and are we willing to pay him that type of money? Maybe they just weren't willing to pay the $8 million that Dalvin Cook got, or the $3 or $4 million that Ezekiel Elliott got. Maybe they're willing to pay a Jonathan Taylor $10 to $11 million and hope that sign to a 2-3 year deal, and maybe in a couple of years we'll see what happens. Another team I think would be interesting would be the Chicago Bears. You look at a team that has a lot of money. It depends on what they feel when it comes to running back wise. I mean, are they sold on Khalil Herbert, Dante Foreman, or Roschon Johnson? I mean, Roschon Johnson to me is the big wild card out of the bunch. I think that they got a big steal in the 4th round with this kid because he backed up Bijan Robinson. He's got a lot of tread left on those tires, and the kid is just a beast. He is a strong, powerful running back who can catch the ball out of the backfield. So maybe they're feeling Roschon Johnson is their guy, and they're not willing to pay. But if you are, you've got money. You've got plenty of money. You got Justin Fields still on rookie contract. You can pay him for a few years, and then once it's time for Justin Fields' contract to come up, then you move on, and hopefully you have a running back in place to replace him.
Yeah. Well, time's running out. I mean, they're going to run out of time if they want to make a move before the beginning of the season. And here's the thing. If you're drafting fantasy football, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here in the next couple of weeks, Jonathan Taylor is one of those guys that right now he's going to start to fall so far, like second. If it's late second round, mid-second round, if he's still there, are you taking him? Even with what's going on,
man. See, this is
together. So
I've had a couple drafts where I've had Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor drop to me in the 2nd round, and like where it's the flip, where I have the first pick in the third round too, and I'm still hesitant to draft someone that early, not knowing for sure if they're even when they're going to play. I mean, they're out, the first 6 weeks of the season. There's a chance you may not make the playoffs now because you invested such a high pick in a guy like that. I mean, we saw it with Le'Veon Bell a few years ago. People still drafted him in the first round, second round, and the dude holds out for the whole year.
Yeah.
Now, I think Jonathan Taylor's a safer bet than Josh Jacobs, because Josh Jacobs has came out and publicly said, I am holding out for the betterment of the running back, the future and the present running backs in the NFL. So to me, that says Josh Jacobs isn't planning on playing anytime soon. Yeah. Jonathan Taylor, I think I would maybe take a swing on him in mid to late second round, but man, it's still difficult. I mean, you're spending a high, draft pick on a guy that you don't know when he's going to play. And I mean, he hasn't even practiced with the Colts at all this offseason.
That's the other thing. I'm like, how rusty is he going to be? How much will it matter? So,
yeah,
I don't know. It's going to be tough. And the other thing I'm super frustrated by, fantasy-wise, is if you're looking at drafting any of these rookie quarterbacks, or maybe a guy like Sam Howell. He's not a rookie, but he's still young. Mm-hmm. I'm furious that they're not getting these guys more reps in the preseason. I don't understand. I get the fact that, like, well, it's all this money. It's a first-round pick. We want to protect them, keep them healthy. Don't you want to be good? Don't you want them to get the garbage reps out of the way when it doesn't matter, when the wins and losses don't count? When, sure, I look up at the scoreboard and it was 13-17, you lost. Who cares? It's preseason. Get these guys reps. I don't understand it. We don't need to see the third-string quarterback whenever you're over here just trying to protect your rookie who hasn't done anything. Anthony Richardson, are you kidding me? Didn't play at all after he was named starter. That one blew my mind. Jim Irsay being Jim Irsay again. Yeah, I'd love to know what Tyler, he was in the chat a couple weeks ago. I'd love to know what he thinks about it. I know he's a huge Colts fan. I'd be furious.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Like, I get part of it is I think, probably worried about injuries, all that stuff. But man, like you said, you want them to get as many reps as possible before they go out there and face that, the NFL. Right now, at least maybe get their confidence up. Yeah, even if they're doing it against first, second or third team guys, at least help get their confidence up, get them reps. And I mean, the CJ Stroud the first week, he plays 2 series and both were bad. And I guess he was on DeMeco Ryans like, dude, let me go out there and try to, salvage what I did, try to better myself for this game. I'm like, you took him out after he, has a terrible interception and a terrible second drive. And now you kind of tanked his confidence because he ends it on a bad note. Let him go out there, at least go out there and make it, a big drive and, get some points, and then take him out of the game. At least have that confidence up at the end of the game going, okay, I did good. Instead they say you played bad, take you out.
Yeah, you learn more from the mistakes anyways. This is the best coaching in football in the world should be at the professional level. Now, granted, there are some really great coaches in college, but the best in baseball, football, basketball should always be at the professional level because that's where all the money is, and that's where these guys' lives depend on it. And so you'd say, like, hey, you messed up. Here's what we did wrong. Here's what we need to change. Let's get it better. And it's just babying these guys to help protect them. Listen, the quarterbacks, especially if you're a quarterback, you are already protected by so many different penalties. Yeah. So just let them go. Let them go.
I mean,
now, if you're Russell Holmes, you don't need to be playing in preseason more than a season. I don't care.
Yeah. I get these, veterans like that, but Russell Wilson played the whole first quarter of his first preseason game.
He probably should have to prove that. He's Russell Wilson.
I mean, that shows you right there that they knew that he needs those reps in this new offense that he's learning. What is that any different than a rookie or a guy like Sam Howell or like Jordan Love, who hasn't really played at all in the NFL? What's the difference? Someone trying to learn a new offense like Russell Wilson compared to a rookie that has no NFL experience and is trying to learn a new offense in the NFL.
Yeah. And we say this, and Russell Wilson was 3 for 6 for 24 yards.
I'm talking about the first preseason game against the Cardinals.
Yeah. Trey Lance against the Broncos last week, 12 for 18, 173. I mean, not too bad. Yeah. Still something.
Brock Purdy. Dude. Like I said, I don't put too much stock in preseason,
But
but it was about the throws. It wasn't like, oh man, he was just shredding it was the throws he was making that made me go, okay, he's healthy.
the preseason or the practice interceptions, I'm not as worried about all of a sudden.
Yeah, and so
about like,
I know. So maybe we're just wrong about Brock Purdy, or maybe it was just the fact that they weren't playing a full strength defense.
Yeah.
But man, he looked real solid. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be great, story for the NFL to have the last pick in the draft quarterback no one really expected anything out of become a sensation in the NFL. But
a solid quarterback. I don't need to become a sensation.
Well, I mean, he already is becoming a sensation through 8 games in his career. So, I mean, I still think the verdict is out, but man, he definitely looked sharper than I expected, especially after, like you said, we were talking back and forth about these things, the interceptions during practices and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's not good. We're looking rough, type. So, hey, maybe we're wrong. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Well, if you're feeling good, let's go ahead and let's jump into some college football. I don't want because we're just gonna hit the ground running. It's gonna be too good. Too good. All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1. Are you hitting record? No, I'll recount again. I was like, usually your button's like right there. Sorry. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast. Jimothy, as always, with me is the one and only Tubby.
What is up?
Let's go. It's college football season. It's week 0, which means you know what we're doing today. We did it last year. We did it the year before. And so this week we are doing our college football preview episode. We got a little bit more bonus content, whether it was talking NFL, we're talking baseball. It's over on the YouTube side of things. But today, as you listen to this, it is all college football going today. So I hope you guys are ready. Tubby, how ready are you?
Oh, I'm 7 pages of notes ready.
7 pages of notes. That's more pages of notes. Are they front and back?
Yes.
That'd be great if you're like, yep, of course. We're going to give them 14 pages of notes. That's what it is.
Yep, front and back.
There we go. Did you see the all-time AP poll thing that came out this week? They do it every year. Oh. So it's a poll. It's not a poll. It's more of a total, if you will. Sorry, someone in the chat, DeMarco, you just put Curry's the best point guard ever. Man, you're gonna get me off on a side. You know for a fact it's not Curry. We talked about this, man. That's propaganda, is what I think I would say. Tim, welcome back to the show, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. He said it himself. If the man is sorry, if Curry is saying he's the greatest point guard of all time, then I'm discrediting him. I'm just saying.
I mean, anyone can say they're the greatest of all time. Doesn't mean it's true.
See? Okay, you heard it here from Tubby. I'm just saying. Tubby's on board with it. And then Tim said he didn't take that many notes in 4 years of high school. Hey, man, that just means you were locking it down, Tim, up top. So you're crushing it. So let's go. All right, so let's go ahead and jump real quick into this all-time list. So it goes at the end of the year, where do you rank in the AP poll, right? And so it talks about every year it accumulates since it started, the AP poll. So up until this last year, do you know who is number 1?
Oklahoma.
Oh, no, Oklahoma. That's right. Anybody who didn't agree with that, I'm just sorry. Oklahoma continually was up there. Now, because last year they slid down the list, they didn't give me votes. They dropped all the way to number 3. Can you guess what number 1 is?
Based off Michigan.
Oh, Michigan is close. They are 4th.
Ooh. Is it Alabama? It's not
Alabama is number 1.
Is it really?
1. They moved up from number 2 to number 1. I mean, you got to think 7 national championships. That's a lot of number 1s. I mean, every year they're in the playoff.
There's just that, streak through the 80s and 90s where they were just not it.
I know. That's a good point. But the same thing for the Sooners. They had 2 decades where they were bad.
The 90s were definitely a rough go for the Sooners.
Yeah. Tim in the chat put Ohio State. That's a great guess. They are number 2 now. All time behind Alabama. Michigan is 4. Number 5, believe it or not, is Notre Dame. I don't know how many people would have thought of that, but it's Notre Dame is number 5. And they've had so much history. They just haven't been
Mhm.
as, I mean, really since they made the national championship and got thumped, they haven't really been great. So, but here's the thing: you got USC at number 6, snooze. But I get it, right? Does that include the years that they apparently weren't allowed to have those championships? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
Nebraska and Texas are tied for 7th, and Penn State at 9. That makes sense. They were competitive for so long, and then Tennessee rounds out number 10. So, of those, would you consider all 10 of those blue bloods?
Mm. I don't know if you can. I think there's only one that I really wouldn't consider a blue blood. That's Tennessee.
Tennessee, okay. So that means right now we have 9 blue bloods. So here's the next question. The next 5, I'm curious about this, is LSU, Georgia, Florida State, Auburn, Florida. How many of those would you consider? Yeah.
I mean, I think USC's kind of on the border too. I don't know if I'd really consider them a blue blood. I don't know. It's just one of those things that they had a really good 2000s and they've had some great years, Marcus Allen, stuff like that. But I don't look at them and go, they are one of the linchpins of college football like you do like some of those other ones. I think LSU, what they've done over the last 20 years, is the closest one. I would think, but I still don't think I would consider them a blue blood because it's been about really 20 years of great football for them, and there's been some rough years within those 20 years.
Oh yeah, well I think that this is what's crazy because then after that, I don't know if you, Tim, if you didn't hear, LSU was in there at 11, but after that you got Clemson, UCLA is in there. Would you consider UCLA a blue blood at this point?
Mm-mm.
I think it's been too long. Arkansas, Michigan State, A&M, Texas A&M, Washington, Wisconsin, Ole Miss, and Iowa. Iowa made 25, which I think is incredible.
I'm kind of surprised Iowa's actually not a little bit higher.
Okay.
Just because, they were always like the sneaky team that somehow was ranked towards the top 10, and you're like, wait, how did they get there? I didn't know they were that good, but they weren't really great, but their defense has always been so sound that besides last year, even with really bad offense, they were able to be competitive teams. So I'm surprised A&M is that high, honestly. I don't think of them and go, they are a good, because we saw what they were in the Big 12. I mean, really, they were a poverty team in the Big 12, and it's basically the same thing what they've done besides, a few decent years with Johnny Manziel as the quarterback.
Even then, they were like 8-5.
Yeah. That's why I said decent years.
Yeah, I guess that is decent.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm kind of surprised they're as high as they are.
Yeah. Well, the last back-to-back-to-back champion, Minnesota, was number 33. Some of the other ones out there, Oklahoma State made 30, which I was kind of surprised by. Oregon all the way up to 29 after all the years that they've had success last 20 years. Most of these schools are all Power 5. I think, Power 5 now. I mean, you got Houston, who's now there, which kind of was surprised how high they were. BYU is now Power 5 as well. And they had a couple of independents with Navy. Army was in there. Army from back in the day. So
Army was them back in the day.
They were that. They were that dude, that school. So
one
of these days, I think they should have a coach that brings in a non-option offense. I would like to see that. Is the Navy new head coach like that?
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't really looked to see what he does, or honestly, I don't even know where he's from. I don't know if he was just an assistant under Ken, or if he was someone that they brought in new.
They'll have some new wrinkles this season. That's what it says.
Hey, good.
It's one of the first games that we get to watch, though. It's the 1:00 game in Dublin, which I love. I think it's going to be great. No, last year it was Nebraska and Northwestern.
Yeah.
So at least this year we get Navy, and we also get Notre Dame, which it's two good programs out there. And then the second game is that's the
SC San Jose State.
Yeah, the late West Coast game. So I don't know. I'm probably gonna watch both. Just gonna throw that out there because my wife is gonna be working the game at the Chiefs preseason game. She's gonna be out on the field doing all the stuff there. So no big deal. No big deal.
Well, okay.
I know. That was one of those like, can you though? Can you get me a pass? No. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Can I stand on the sideline with you?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
So, well, with today's episode, we're going to focus on some predictions, some top 10, some theories. We kind of snuck a sneak preview last week with the breakdown of the top 25 poll. But let's just start. Do you just want to start breaking down conference by conference? Do you want to just go? Okay, so we got
Let's
to
just
start
go conference by conference for now.
We start with the ACC.
Yeah.
Maybe the last year that we have to do a Power 5 breakdown.
It definitely will be. Then it'll be the Power 4 breakdown, because I don't think that after this year you can consider the Pac-12, even if they bring in the Mountain West, a Power 5 school or a conference.
You can. I definitely, yeah. All right, so we're going to start with the ACC. Everyone's darling this year right now, I think, is Florida State. People all up on Florida State, but do they even have the best quarterback? Because Drake May is expected to be maybe that number 2 pick in the draft this year, if not number 1, with North Carolina. And then you have a bunch there in the middle. You have Miami, who consistently kind of underperforms, but they'll be a competitive team. It's a lot of new faces, a lot of new quarterback turnover in this conference this year. So Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina. Is this truly a 3-headed beast, or is there someone else on the dark horse side that you are considering?
I mean, I honestly see it as a 2-headed race. I think it's Clemson and Florida State. I don't know if North Carolina can quite have enough to compete with these two teams. I think if there's a sneaky team, and I know if you look at a lot of like predictions where they're supposed to be, I think NC State's a team that could scare some people, just because they had one of the best defenses in this conference last year, only giving up 19.2 points per game. You only lose like 2 or 3 guys on that defense, and you return a whole lot of the guys that were there. The big thing is, can Brendan Armstrong, transfer from Virginia, can he do what he did a couple of years ago with Virginia and be this kind of broke out quarterback where people weren't expecting anything? Can he reignite that with his former offense coordinator that was with him in Virginia, is now the offense coordinator at NC State? Can they rekindle something and then be able to have a chance? Because last year, offensive-wise, they were just anemic. I mean, defense was there, offense wasn't there. And
they had injuries at quarterback very early on. I think that can derail you really quick. But
Devin Leary got hurt. What was it, week 1, week 2?
Yeah, it was. And bad. I remember
I was expecting Devin Leary to be a big-time quarterback last year for NC State. And
he's the East Coast version of Caleb Rising.
Yeah,
Cam Rising.
He really is. Cam Rising, yeah.
Cam Rising. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I'm thinking K Klubnik now, and I'm getting all the 3 of their
names. You're combining all 3.
Yeah, and I think if you look at NC State's schedule, it starts off well, so that if the Notre Dame is the big one, they got to win. That one's at home, so they do have a chance on that game to really get started off on the right foot. And then they really don't have a tough game. Louisville's always a wild card, but even last year they looked in shambles towards the end of the year. So you got to wonder what they'll look like. And then once you get to Clemson, the back half of their schedule is when it really hits home, and it's going to be a lot tougher. So I like that idea of a competitive, scrappy NC State team making it. I am not sold on Florida State yet. I am not.
Yeah.
The team that they played against OU in the Cheez-It Bowl last year, and maybe that we should be taking into bowl games. This OU team was very undermanned, undersized, underwhelmed, everything, whatever you want to say, compared to this Florida State team. And it was a game. It was a game. And I do like their quarterback. I think that it can drive them a lot. But if there's a team right now that I'm looking inside the top 10, they're one of my leading candidates to not be inside the top 10 at the end of the year. And we'll get into more of that as we go. But and I think Clemson's one of those teams that it's almost like Lincoln Riley. They're going to be 1 or 2 losses at the end of the year, and it's just, do they outlast Florida State in that?
Yeah, I mean,
they play each other early on.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State, you look at it, they have to improve defensive-wise. You have a lot of questions in the secondary. You have 2 good pass rushers in Verse and Cypress that I think can put some pressure on them. But you also you had the 75th worst run defense last year in college football. Can you correct that? I mean, Oklahoma gashed you with two freshman running backs, both over 100 yards. You're lucky you got away with that bowl win with, like you said, a bevy of guys just not playing. I think Clemson is in the driver's seat, but I think it's the way football is now. Everything rests on quarterback. Can Cade Klubnik, the few starts he had towards the end of the year, can he build upon that and kind of reach somewhat of the potential that everyone thinks he can be, coming from the Gatorade National Player of the Year, #1 quarterback in his recruiting class? Can he take to the next level? Because we know the defense is going to be there. But they do have a secret weapon this year on the offensive side, and it's Garrett Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Riley comes over from TCU, and we've seen what he's able to do with quarterbacks. Man, if he can get in there and him and Cade can really gel together, it could be a dangerous team.
Well, and they needed to get a fresh face in there too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if Cade doesn't pan out, and then you have to pile that on top of DJ, then it starts to look like a pattern. And then you're like, okay, so what other changes you got to make? So it's good that they made the change, and I think that's a good point to have the secret weapon. And a lot of people aren't looking at that. So have you made your official pick?
Yeah, I'm going Clemson. I think Clemson wins the ACC this year. I think it's hard to bet against them because, like I said, I'm not completely sold on Florida State. I think there's still some questions out on Jordan Travis. Mm-hmm. I think we've seen him have one good year, and can he, really keep up with the momentum and the defensive wise? I just don't know if there's another team in this division or in this conference that can really test what Clemson has done over the last 10 years.
Yeah, and Jordan Travis has been in the league playing college football since 2018. Guys,
yeah,
it's nuts how some of these guys are still playing college football. But I'm also picking Clemson. I know that's kind of what I'm not a huge fan of Florida State right now, and if there was a dark horse in this one, I couldn't really give you a good one, a solid one. I like the NC State one. I like NC just because they have maybe one of the best quarterbacks. And so we've seen that as OU fans, and we've seen that in the Big 12 in the past, and even in the SEC lately, where the best quarterback can win you a conference, even if your defense is lacking. So instead of NC State, I'll take North Carolina just because they might have the best quarterback in the conference. So I like it. I lost you.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I was on mute. But they definitely do have the best quarterback in this conference. I mean, Drake May is a top 2 player in college football and probably will reflect that when it comes draft time this year. But I don't know if there's enough around him to really catapult them into a conversation of winning the conference and pushing for, a decent, top 10. Just because, I mean, you do lose Josh Downs now. You lost #1 wide receiver, and then they lost a bunch of guys on the defense and the transfer portal. I don't know if they were able to replenish enough to really give Drake May much of a chance to push them forward.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. All right. Any final thoughts on the ACC before we move to the Big 10, which should normally be called the Big 24 or something like that now?
What are they at? 16, 18 now? Whatever they're at.
It's so many. Oh, man, I just hit enter. Oh, good. It didn't do it. Okay, good. I was worried if I accidentally put a backslash on one of them. I was like, I ruined it. All right. All right, so we're going to move to the Big 10, and this is the one where Michigan has dominated Ohio State the last 2 years. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people are predicting this is a 3-year trend now where they're going to take down Ohio State because this is a 2-man race. In reality, is Penn State legit threat?
I don't see it yet. We talked about this a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, whatever. I think James Franklin is right there with Jimbo Fisher as one of the most overrated coaches in college football. I love Drew Allar. I think Drew Allar can be a great, college quarterback and, potential NFL guy. But I'm not sold on James Franklin. To me, they always seem to crumble in the big moments and can never really get over that hump. Honestly, I think it's a 1-team race right now. I don't look at Ohio State right now, and if I'm Michigan, I'm not really scared. We have handled you the last 2 years, and that was with CJ Stroud. Yeah, That's with C.J. Stroud as the quarterback. Now you got big quarterback questions. Who's going to be the quarterback? Is it Kyle McCord? Is it Devin Brown? And I just saw this right before we came on, and this really kind of like if I'm an Ohio State fan, kind of shake my confidence in the season, is that even the coaching staff is split on who the starting quarterback is going to be.
That's a bad sign.
They had a vote today, and it was split down the middle, 6 for each on the offensive side of the coaching staff. And they're like, it's basically a coin toss who's going to be the starting quarterback this year. That's not something you want, because I think everyone coming into the offseason expected Kyle McCord just to be handed the job at this point because of his relationship with Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a big-time quarterback recruit coming out of high school. Everyone expected him just to take the job and run with it. Well, it hasn't been the case, and I think the longer it takes for them to announce their starting quarterback, I think the bigger chance that Devin Brown has at stealing this job away from Kyle McCord.
Mm-hmm.
So, honestly, right now I see it as Michigan, Tier 1, and then
a gap.
Ohio State. Yeah, a decent gap between them and Ohio State and Penn State. I would put Penn State or Ohio State closer to the Penn State side than I would the Michigan side, because I just don't. I think there's a lot of questions, and then plus on top of that, we have seen a defense with really good defensive players underperform the last 2 or 3 years. And can Jim Knowles, the second year Jim Knowles defense in Ohio State, can they turn things around? Will be the question. And then also, you are replacing 3 starters on that offensive line to go with a quarterback that has no college experience, really.
And here, what an absolute waste this would be if they cannot produce a good quarterback out of this. And now here, this is one of those things we talked about earlier in the offseason of college football, if that's what you're going to call it, that we were like, trust the system. You got to trust the system for Alabama. You got to trust it for Ohio State because they've done this before. But we knew a little bit more about the guys that were coming in. Imagine if Quinn Ewers was still in that system now, and how much more he might be better off than he is in Texas. And I'm not saying anything about that, but just imagining that, because right now, Devin Brown that you mentioned, do you know what his number officially is right now before the season starts?
Oh, it's 20 something, right?
33.
30. Yeah. And so his number is, I heard this the other day. It's based off of, I guess Sammy Baugh is his all-time favorite player. And so he went with 33 to honor Sammy Baugh. And so he picked 33.
He's keeping it?
Yeah, he's keeping it.
Okay. Well, I think that's cool. I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
That was great because, here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
well, I think that I don't know if it's that far apart yet. I really do like Michigan to win this one because, man, they're just playing a Big Ten brand of football right now, and I trust their quarterback more. And I think if that's what you're looking at, it's always, do I trust the quarterback more? But with this conference, I almost said division, it is a 2-division system for one more year. And so you have to look at, in theory, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, those are the 3 teams that you'd expect to compete in the West to be able to play in the Big Ten championship game. Of those 3 teams, is there one of them that you think, man, end of the year, you think might have the best chance? Again, new quarterback over there for one of those teams.
Yeah, I look at it, and I think Wisconsin is a sneaky team. You bring in Luke Fickell, you bring in Tanner Mordecai, who is absolutely the better of all those quarterbacks on that side of that conference. And you bring in CJ Williams, and you still got Braylon Allen, and you know the defense is going to be there. They've always been a quarterback away from really competing. Now you got Tanner Mordecai, who has been a good college quarterback. Maybe it had been in the American Conference or whatever, but he still was able to succeed and be a good quarterback. This could be a sneaky team that really pushes themselves up the rankings this year, because I think Luke Fickell is a great coach, and I love what he's done. I mean, he's went in there and absolutely solidified that quarterback room by bringing in Tanner Mordecai, bringing in Nick Evers, transfer from Oklahoma, and then getting his quarterback for this upcoming recruiting cycle. I think he's already probably on the next step towards pushing this team to be a solid team. but I just don't know if anyone can compete with Michigan right now. And we kind of had like this little cliffhanger about a month ago when we were talking about who is possibly the top team in college football. I look at it right now with all I know, and I think Michigan is the best team in college football.
I mean, that's not. I don't.
It's not. Yeah, it's not
a
absolutely
huge jump
crazy.
to even say that outrageous, but I think most people would not agree with you. That would be a surprise,
Yeah.
like Michigan. But after what we saw last year, I think that makes sense. I think that's pretty fair, especially with the quarterback turnover for a lot of these big programs this year.
And that's it. The quarterback things is just the questions at all these big schools.
Yeah. Tim in the chat said, "Go Rutgers." Just want you to know that. How many people remember that Rutgers are in the Big Ten? Dude, I forget every time.
Scarlet Knights. I mean,
I know. Who would have
you never know. But but JJ McCarthy is absolutely the best quarterback in this conference. You've got probably the best 1-2 running back tandem in college football, and Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. We saw, Blake Corum put his name in the Heisman, got hurt towards the end, then we just see Donovan Edwards come out of nowhere and just absolutely pick up where he left off, and maybe even looked a little bit better. I thought
he was a little bit more explosive.
Yeah,
your classic Michigan running back is Corum, but Donovan Edwards is that guy, that home run back.
Yeah, he was able to show, I think, more power than I expected from him in some of those runs. The questions I have is, we've seen them be good and then just absolutely get blitzed in the playoffs, give a lot of points and not be able to hang. Is that the same case? Or maybe they go, okay, we've been there a couple times. We know what we need to do. Can the defense be good enough? And can they find a weapon on the outside? Losing Ronnie Bell, losing Andrell Anthony, who is a big, high ceiling upside guy to the transfer portal. Who's going to be that wide receiver to step up on the outside to give J.J. McCarthy someone to throw to? Because they also lose starting tight end Luke Schoonmaker to the NFL draft. So can Roman Smith be that guy to step up and be the go-to guy? There's still questions there. But, I mean, you look at this team, it's hard to find a glaring hole in this, from top to bottom, offense, defense, and special teams,
I feel like, so you've already made the pick. It's Michigan for sure. I am still going to pick. I'm going to pick Michigan because they beat Ohio State the last 2 years, and I'm not a Dave fan yet. I haven't been on board with them. I like the joke that it was a couple years ago when they said, "Listen, you didn't start on you didn't have to hit your way around the bases. You started on third base, like you're a pinch runner."
Yeah.
So just know. So I thought that has aged really well. But they do have so much talent on the offensive side. They've recruited really well. So you got to think, if they can figure out the quarterback position, they should put themselves in a position to win. But this year's game is back in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, right? Isn't it back in Michigan this year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they got beat in the horseshoe last year.
Yeah, because they won the first time in forever at Michigan in the snow, and then last year. So I don't know. That's going to be another tough win. So we're both picking them. Is there a chance that there could be 2 teams in the playoff this year from the Big Ten? I think this is the first conference we have to actually ask that question.
I think that if they can, if Ohio State can figure the things out on the offense quarterback side, if Devin Brown or McCord can step up and be good, because like you said, you've got the weapons. You've got absolute weapons with Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming. You got Mayan Williams and Trevion Henderson, running back. You got the offensive weapons. You have the big name guys on the defensive side, but can you put it all together? I just think that they've had these guys on the defensive side the last couple of years, and we just haven't seen them live up to the potential. Yeah. They've always had the offense, but now you're talking about an offense that doesn't have C.J. Stroud. You don't have Paris Johnson, your starting left tackle. You don't have Dawan Jones, your starting right tackle. And you don't have Luke Weipler, your starting center. With a new quarterback, I think it's going to be tough for them to overcome, just because now you're trying to integrate 3 new starters with a brand new starting quarterback. And I watched the spring game, and the spring game, that won't tell you a whole lot, but that offensive line absolutely struggled against the number 1 defense for Ohio State. And that, to me, doesn't translate well for the season coming up if you're getting. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, they were getting whipped every single play. You can't do that against Michigan. I don't think you can do that against Penn State, or even if you get a chance. I don't know. I don't think Wisconsin's on their schedule, but I think they play Notre Dame this year. You can't do that
We're talking
against
about
Notre
Ohio
Dame.
State, right?
Yeah, Ohio State. Yeah, you just there's too many questions for me in some of these major positions that I don't know if they can do it, but if they can get the things right, they absolutely have the talent to be a playoff team.
Yeah, well, and they start the year. It's a conference game at Indiana, so you're not going to get hit in the mouth. But it's a conference
Yeah.
game. It matters from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And they got 2 cupcakes before they go the third non-conference game at Notre Dame. So you're definitely right on that. Their schedule, it's not the easiest one in the back half of the year. Once they hit Notre Dame, it's actually going to be tough. I mean, you're going to have Maryland, who has a decent quarterback, but
Yeah.
You look at this, and then we had a good question in the chat from Tim. He just said, "What are the additions of Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA for the Big Ten next year?" I mean, is that going to change any of the dynamic that you're looking at for this year? That some of these top 3 teams, 4 teams in this conference, that they're going to have to build this year in order to either keep pace or stay ahead of the game when it comes to these ones. Go.
The biggest thing going into this for next year is that 3 of those 4 teams are going to be starting out with brand new quarterbacks. Oregon, Bo Nix will be gone. Michael Penix will be gone. Caleb Williams will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So you have three of those teams are immediately going to be coming in with more than likely freshman quarterbacks or sophomore quarterbacks. Maybe they hit the transfer portal. We don't know. Because honestly, I don't know what's behind either Penix or Bo Nix at this point. I know USC, you got Malachi Nelson. UCLA, they've got a guy that I think should start right off the bat in Dante Moore, and I think he's a great quarterback. I just don't know the first year or so if any of these teams can compete with the Ohio States or the Michigans or even maybe Wisconsin and Penn State next year, depending on who's still there on these teams.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of it. So maybe UCLA somehow managed to be a slight step ahead. Again, Lincoln Riley is a great quarterback recruiter. He gets good talent. I will say we've seen Malachi Nelson, and it'll have been 2 years since then. But the dude did not look great in the high school games that we saw him play, and he's going to go play against Big Ten teams in the winter in the Midwest. And he's a Cali boy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they don't typically make him the same in Cali as they do the Midwest or the South or the East Coast. It's just different style.
Yep.
So I think here's my biggest frustration. The same thing with the Big 12. There's no divisions. You got to have divisions. When you have these mega conferences, it's going to ruin some of the pageantry of college football where you don't have the same rivalries. And if I am UCLA or one of these new teams, I technically do want to still play all 4 of these teams. I want to play these guys every single year for recruiting, for just the history of it, and just to continue on something cool. And then I'll play the other teams. So I'll do, the rotations that you do with other conferences. Yeah. It's just sad to see that they won't have that going forward, just like the SEC won't have that going forward, just like the Pac hasn't had it going forward. So I'm just sad about it. I think it's going to be good, and the Big Ten is trying to make a statement that they are the new conference over the SEC. And we won't know for sure until 2 or 3 years down the road of what that is really looking like.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could say, like, depth-wise, that the Big Ten is going to have every shot to make that claim, I think, because you look at some of the middle teams in the SEC, and we can get to that when we get there, but your middle teams in the SEC, Texas, right? So, but like, you get Texas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Some of these teams, are they better than would you rather have Penn State? Maybe. I mean, that's a huge brand. That is a blue blood, and Mississippi State is not.
That's fair.
Anyway, just saying.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point.
Yeah. So a lot to see. We both picked Michigan in this conference. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and move on to the Big 12, which has 4 brand new additions for this year. We have BYU, UCF, Houston, as well as, which one am I missing?
You say BYU,
Cincinnati,
UCF, Cincinnati.
The team that nobody expects to finish anywhere but last in the conference this year. Rough year for a transition.
Yeah.
But maybe in the long term it helps. I mean, you got to think, if they would have kept the coaching and the momentum that they had from 2 years ago, this would have been huge. Yeah. So a bit on the downturn the Big 12 is as far as that one goes. A bit, not bad downturn, Big 12, Cincinnati. But if you look at this right now, most people, because this is more of an open conference, I don't think anybody expects a team in the Big 12 to represent in the college football playoff if you ask them today. But they're picking Texas to win.
Yeah, no, that is probably a fair assessment because like this is a very wide open conference.
Mhm.
I look at it and I think that there's probably 6 teams that have a legitimate chance at winning the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that one of these teams could very well go one loss, win the Big 12, and push their way into the playoffs. I mean, you look at what TCU did last year. I mean, no one expected TCU to be what they were and then push their way into the playoffs and even made it to the national championship game. So for one of these teams to do that, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, yeah, everyone's picking Texas. I will never buy Texas ever until I see anything happen. Otherwise,
ESPN said Texas is back. No, really, the Longhorns have all the pieces to win 10 games or more.
yeah.
Sure.
So one of the best bets you could make in the last 13 years in college football has been taking the under on the projected wins by Texas. They have 12 out of the last 13 years. They have went under their projected win total 12 out of the last 13 years. So at that point, I mean, history's kind of not on your side. And I think there's a very good chance that they do exactly what we expect and probably lose 4 or 5 games because I'm not sold on Quinn Ewers. I have not seen anything from Quinn Ewers to give me any confidence whatsoever to think that he can be a guy that can lead your team to a playoff, a conference championship game, even a playoff game at this point. Now there's rumors going around that quote unquote Arch Manning's looking real great during fall practice and that by the end of the year, Arch Manning's going to be the starting quarterback. If that's your take, all that tells me is that at that point, Texas will not be in any contention for the Big 12 or the playoffs because you are not going to switch quarterbacks if you are that good and you're in contention for the Big 12 championship or the playoffs. There's no reason to swap quarterbacks. I think Oklahoma is a very interesting team. I mean,
we're going to be biased, but yeah, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And Brent Venables.
I mean, yeah, it's the thing is you're returning a 1A, 1B top quarterback in this conference, and I think him and Jalen Daniels are the 2 best quarterbacks in this conference. As of right now, the big thing is can the defense take a step forward, and this is what Brent Venables is known for. He has went out transfer portal and hit it hard to rebuild this defensive line, and you bring in Rondell Bothroyd from Wake Forest, Davon Sears, Daron Terry, Phil Paya, Jacob Lacey, Trace Ford. You've brought in 4 or 5 guys that have great, experience in college football, have been really good, college football players to go along with the younger guys and the R. Mason Thomas, Ethan Downs, Reggie Grimes, PJ Adebor. You have the good combination of the vets to teach these young guys, but the vets to show up when they need to. And then everything that he's saying about the linebacker group with Jared Kanik and Stutzman, that Stutzman has taken such a huge leap forward this year that he's like, last year we came in and he wasn't really watching film. He wasn't really reading the playbooks. He said he couldn't, lead a players only drill. He said now he's out there leading player only drills. He's doing all this stuff. So I think that was the biggest. And the thing is, you look at his numbers last year and you wouldn't have thought anything about it. You look at those numbers and he is absolutely all Big 12 type player with the numbers he put up last year. And so,
but I think it's the intangibles that really were the difference maker. You could put it on put points on the board, but it's those little things that help make you a leader or the winner that they want.
Yeah.
And the one thing I really love about Brent Venables and his system and the history that we've seen, 2 years. He said it takes 2 years to learn this defensive system. Guess what year we're in? We're in year number 2. So I think at the beginning of the year with the schedule that they have the chance to really. They're not playing Alabama week 2, so you don't have to do that, which is nice. But they have the chance to get this thing, the wheels turning in the right direction. And like you said, Dylan Gabriel, he's not a Caleb Williams. He's not Drake May. He's not going to be, a number 1 overall draft pick, but he has the potential to put them in the position. If he's better on 3rd down and better on 4th and short, they should be better. This team last year was 6-7 with a loss in a bowl game, despite losing 5 games by 1 possession. You flip half those. You flip, 2 or 3 of those. That record is the same as Texas' record last year, who thumped OU in that game. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that game I completely throw it out because we had no quarterback. Yeah, and I think there's the questions on the offensive side is very valid. Who's going to be the guy to replace, or the guys to replace Marvin Mims on the outside? You've got a bunch of young guys vying to be that guy. I think Jalil Farouk is someone that we need to see step up and just have a big year and be that go-to guy. But you still got Drake Stoops, who is a good pesky guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the absolute potentials in Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson. You got LV Bunkley Shelton, 2nd year in the offense. He probably should have some more, go. So I think that they have all the pieces, and I think it's just the schedule sets up so well for them this year to, go 10-2 or go 11-1. Because like I said, you flip those 1-loss games, and they were all by a field goal, or say at least most of them were by field goal.
Yeah,
and that's all it was. And in those games, most of those games, we missed a field goal or 2 in those games. So, yeah, I think that he's done a great job building what he wants and who he wants on this defensive side. I think the big thing is, can they, defensive-wise, is who they're going to find to play opposite of Woody Washington. Woody Washington corner-wise. I think Jared Kanik has absolutely sewn up the other, inside linebacker position. Then you bring in Deshaun McCullough, who is one of the top freshmen in Big Ten. Bring in Reggie Pearson, who was an absolute thumper, safety. Gentry Williams is the guy I'm looking at corner-wise, opposite of Woody Washington, who I think that has the potential for them two to be really good corners, and it just kind of now lies on, can they put it together?
Can they put it together? Their schedule sets up a little bit better than Texas' schedule. Is not super friendly. You start off week 2 is against Alabama, at Alabama. Go ahead and chalk that up for a loss, people. The next one is you end the year on a Friday night against Iowa State. We've talked about that before. Not Iowa State, Texas Tech. That's a trap game if I've ever heard of one. That's Texas Tech late in the year on the road. Yep. And it's a Friday. That's literally everything you don't want to do in a Texas Tech game. So K-State question right there. Great in the chat. OU's defense has not been good at stopping the run, let alone most of the teams in the Big 12. No. And you look at K-State, who last year had Deuce Vaughn, who bowling ball was a great description. That dude went off against so many teams last year. Do they have what it takes to answer? If it's me answering that right now, I don't know yet. I hope so. I think they have more talent, more discipline, better leadership on the defensive side than they did this time last year. And you hope just to build on that as the season goes.
Yeah, I mean, great thing for them is they don't have to worry about Deuce Vaughn, because Deuce Vaughn is playing for the Dallas Cowboys now. And Oklahoma, I believe, don't have to play Kansas State. And
correct.
The only the only chance they have of playing Kansas State is possibly in the Big 12 championship game. And that's if Walker Howard can be anything like he was the last, half of the season whenever Martinez got hurt. But we've seen this guy be someone that was getting benched for Skylar Thompson, got benched for, Martinez. I'm not completely sold on Walker Howard. I think they, what?
Will Howard.
Sorry, I'm thinking of LSU kid that transferred to Auburn. Yes.
Of course. Why? Yeah. No. You're good. I just.
Definitely. But I think that there's some questions there. I love Kleiman. I think Kleiman is a great coach there. He's someone that doesn't have to get the top guys to be competitive every year. And so I think that they have a chance to win this. But like I said, I think there's 6 teams. I think Texas, I think Oklahoma, I think Kansas State, I think TCU, I think Kansas and Texas Tech all have a chance at winning this conference. Just because
insane would that be? So last year for OU and Texas, and then Kansas wins the conference. When was the last time they won the Big 12? I don't even think it's ever happened.
I don't even.
2000, I know 2008.
I mean, they had some good ball players that year. I don't know if they won it, but I mean,
no, they didn't win it. That was Sooners made what year was it?
no, it was what, 2007, 2006, 2009. It's somewhere around that era though.
We're gonna find it. You keep
Is Mark Mangini was the head
yeah,
coach.
that's what I'm trying to think of. Is like, they won they were North co-champs 2007, 12-1.
Yeah, and so I mean, Jalen Daniels is the biggest wild card, I think, of all of these guys in the Big 12. Is we saw what they were able to do with him as the quarterback last year.
Yeah,
what, started 5-0 in the Big 12. Then he gets hurt. They go through this rough patch. They win last couple games, and then he takes them from absolute nowhere in the Arkansas bowl game where they're just absolutely getting throttled. Brings him back, and just short of winning that bowl game, he is a difference maker for that team. So I think if Leipold can pull some other things in, they've got some transfers that have came in. They've got a team that is very sneaky, and that they're my dark horse to win this conference. I know a lot of people have them ranked 6th or 7th, but I think this is a team that could very well sneak up on teams because Jalen Daniels is the best quarterback to me.
Gotta stay healthy.
Yeah, and that's going to be the biggest thing.
Everybody they play, which is a stupid statement because that's how you win games. You score more than the other, but their defense is not what's going to get them there. It's going to be Jalen Daniels. I think you're 100%.
Yeah, it's Big 12 though. It's a Big 12 conference that isn't known for playing defense, and there's not really a team that just jumps out to me and goes, man, they are the class of the conference right now, because every team has questions. Texas Tech, what do they do? Yeah, they had a good end of the year.
But that's Texas Tech for you.
Yeah.
Like, they stumble, they're good, they stumble, and then they're really good.
Yeah, TCU, you lost a lot. You lost Duggan. You lost Kendre Miller. You lost Quentin Johnson. You lost Siaki Ika. You lost a lot of guys, and that's not even including the defensive side, losing Tomlin, Hodges, all these guys that you have to replace now. And then there's still the questions quarterback-wise, is Will Howard really that good? Can they replace Deuce Vaughn? Because Deuce Vaughn was the biggest catalyst on that offense. And then you lose Felix Anaduke, Uzama in the first round, and you lose like 2 or 3 guys in the second, your starting secondary that you have to now replace. There's just too many questions with every single team in this conference. Yeah.
Which is why we asked the question, how many Big Ten teams can make it? Because this is another one. ACC and the Big 12 right now don't look like they're poised necessarily to make one. Quick thing, Tim wants to know 2 things. Number 1 was, who does he bet on in the Red River rivalry? You bet on the Sooners, baby. Come on now.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Now, will we win? I don't know. We'll see. But you got to bet on them. Come on. It's more fun.
Yeah.
No one wants to see Texas win, especially if you're an OSU Cowboy fan.
No. Yeah. I mean, you may not want to watch this year if you're an OSU Cowboy fan.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I did see a YouTube video in preparation for college football excitement. And it was biggest comebacks in history. And the OSU game where they were up, I think 35-7 over Texas. And I was like, yeah, I remember this. This was like 2 years in a row. I was so frustrated because I hate Texas. I hate Texas so much. And but it won that game in the year after that too. But anyway, random thing. So, all right. So let's go ahead and let's move on to the pack.
Well,
go ahead.
Who do you have winning?
Oh, yeah. I don't know, man. I'm taking the field.
I'm taking the field.
I do that. I'm taking someone in the conference is going to win the conference. I can't pick either. I want to pick OU because I'm an OU fan, but realistically, I don't think it's Texas. I think it's the field. I don't think it's OU or Texas, and that sucks. I want it to be OU with their peace sign as they head out the door and say, we're headed to the SEC champions. That's what I'd love to see. I don't think it's going to be Texas. I think Texas has a weird road. I think they're going to have inconsistent play from Quinn Ewers, and we talked about that enough.
I think Oklahoma wins. And I feel like this is a biased statement, but I feel like the schedule sets up so well for them right now.
Everyone's talking about Baylor.
I feel like the defense, it can't be worse.
It definitely can't be.
It can't be worse. Even if you moved from, what were they? I want to say their defensive ranking last year was 123rd. So you get it to 75th fifth. I don't want it to be that low, but just say you move up 50 spots.
50.
You lost 5 games by 1 possession.
I know.
That
And
I don't see that happening.
They had more talent this year.
Yeah, the defensive side, that defensive line is the most talent they've had in a long time. And I feel like I don't want to. I know it's definitely coming off as homer because I'm wearing OU, but I feel like a lot of people are underestimating Oklahoma this year.
Yeah. Well, you look at in the chat, someone threw out Baylor as well as an option, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about them. They got Texas State, Long Island in the first 3 games. I don't know how they're going to handle that, but yes, OSU doesn't play Texas this year, which is wild, and they do play OU maybe for one of the last times. Sad day.
Probably the last time.
I mean, OU doesn't have a whole lot to gain from it other than just like, listen, we're still Big Brother. You still can't beat us 101. So, yeah, everybody come to Oklahoma instead of OSU. But that's just what I feel like. I mean, just based off the history. Mike Gundy's got to be thankful that this game is going away.
Oh, absolutely. He was not pushing for that game to be on that schedule anymore.
Yeah, he's like, no, I don't need it.
Yeah.
So, all right, now we can – yes, it is sad with Bedlam because it's one of those things that every year we've grown to love it, but that's what's dying in college football, and I don't think we fully grasp. We don't fully grasp it yet. We're not going to. We're going to get caught up in OU versus Alabama and OU versus LSU and how excited we are for that, and Tennessee again. We're going to miss out on some of those.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead and move to the Pac-12 while we still can. It hasn't, dissolved yet. Thank goodness, I guess. This is
not technically.
Yeah, it has 5 teams in the top 25 heading into the preseason with Oregon, Oregon State, Washington, Utah, of course, the reigning champs, and USC Trojans. Now, Utah, the champs from last year, are the 3rd highest ranked team in this conference, not even number 1 or 2, and still have Rising still there, but they did lose some talent, obviously, in the draft. You look at this conference, no divisions, so this is just best 2 records play each other at the end of the year, and not everybody plays everybody. We talked quite a bit about USC and their schedule, so I don't know that we have to go too deep into that, but this is a much tougher schedule this year for USC, and I would say at the end of the year, look up, and there's probably 2 losses.
I say 3. I think they lose 3 of those Big 4 games. I think they lose 3 of the 4 games to Notre Dame, Washington, Utah, and Oregon. I think they lose. I just don't know. I don't think they have the defense to compete with any of those teams. And all those teams should have the offense to at least not be as good as USC, but be good enough to put up enough points to win. And they all have at least decent defenses to keep them in the games. So saw this thing, and they're talking about Lincoln Riley since he's been head coach, 2018. He's 6-7 against Power 5 teams that finished top 30 in scoring defense.
Oh, wow.
Their points per game dropped a whole 14 points.
Oh my, that's a huge. I thought you were going to say 7 points. Okay.
Yeah, 14 points. They got outrushed, or they got outgained offensive wise by every single one of those teams. I think that there's a big misleading factor when it comes to Lincoln Riley. Yes, he is a great offensive guy. I don't doubt that one bit at all. But you look at it, since he's been the offense, been a head coach, he's played 31 opponents that finished 80th or worse in scoring defense. And 19 of those finished 100th or worse. I think that, his offense, what he does is good, but when it comes down to it and they have to play tough teams, it's not anywhere close to what they need to be because, one, they're playing bad defense themselves. They're not ever going to be a top defense to really give them a chance to win it all. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, everything looks better because they have played bad defenses. They played 6 teams last year that were ranked 100th or worse in defense last year, and in their conference. Mm-hmm. And I just think that people get caught up too much on, offense is always so high powered, but we saw this in the Big 12 too. When we played Baylor, when we played Iowa State, when we played Kansas State, those were the 3 teams that always had solid defenses, and we always struggled against them because his offense is good, but when it comes against these big defenses, they can't sustain what they, quote unquote, should do. And so I think that this year is going to be a big disappointment for a lot of these, for a lot of the USC fans, because they're expecting maybe one loss and make it to the playoffs and win the Pac-12. I just don't see that happening with Bo Nix coming back, Michael Penix. Now you got to play Sam Hartman and Cam Rising coming back. Cam Rising is a little difficult because he did tear his ACL in the Rose Bowl. And so there is the question is how fast can he recover and can he get, back to full strength and be up and ready for, the long haul of the conference. But I just don't think that they are the class of the conference like everyone expects and like the rankings show.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing about that is we have a very close seat to what Lincoln Friendly has done in the past. And so we've seen it, and we've seen it repeated multiple times. And at the end of the year last year, the same thing happened again. Caleb Williams said it himself. We didn't want to be there. We didn't want to be in the Cotton Bowl. And it showed when they lost focus. They didn't do the details. And so if there's one game that they're like, hey, we're not ready for it, then that could find themselves with one extra loss. And it only takes one more because of the harder road to the championship game that they potentially have this year. And I think you're right. The schedule is much more difficult with them, and the amount of quarterbacks that they're going to play that may not be as good as Caleb Williams, but maybe their defense is better than Caleb Williams' defense. And I think that is going to be the biggest struggle. But don't count out Caleb Williams. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He might win back-to-back again. I don't know. We'll get to that here in a second. But this is a team, and I think Cam Rising, it's going to be a big deal if he can't play. I don't trust Utah to really be they'll be competitive because where they play, but they're not going to ultimately be anything more than an Oregon State scrappy team at that point. But for me, when I look at this conference, it's Oregon State's to lose. It's not Oregon State. It's Oregon's to lose. Bo Nix coming back. You look at their schedule. They have Florida at home, just not Oregon. Who was it that has that? Maybe that's hold on.
Utah plays Florida this year.
That's what it was. I just mixed up their schedules. Oregon has a good start to the schedule. Portland State doesn't matter. Texas Tech, Hawaii, then Colorado, then Stanford. So up until we get to Washington, that's their first true test. And then the last test they have, honestly, when I look at it, is the USC and then the Oregon State. And both of those are at home. This is Oregon's conference to lose.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you did lose a couple guys defense-wise. You lose Noah Sewell and you lose Christian Gonzalez. But Dan Lanning is such a good recruiter and knows how to put together a good defense. So I'm not worried about that. My biggest thing is, can Bo Nix replicate what he did last year? But they are in the Pac-12, and I don't expect it to be much of a fall-off. And so I agree. I think Oregon's the team. I think Washington is the team right behind them. I think those are the two best teams, just because there's such a big question with what's going to happen with Cam Rising. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be able to play most of this season? If not, they're going to struggle. And I think Oregon State's the dark horse of them all, because you come off a 10-3 season, you bring in DJ Uiagalelei, who was a big-time quarterback, Bo Nix, big-time quarterback, Michael Penix, big-time quarterback, all failed. But they come to the Pac-12 and they have a new lease on life. The pressure isn't on them as much as it was being, or I guess really shouldn't say Penix, because Penix was at Indiana, but, you got Bo Nix at Auburn, you got, DJ Uiagalelei, who was the number one quarterback in the recruiting class ahead of Bryce Young, went to Clemson and just, really never put it together. I think they could be a sneaky team because you return 7 guys on defense. The biggest question is, offensive-wise, who's he going to throw the football to?
I know. It'll be tough. But this team, you look at it, how likely do you think the Pac-12 is to get someone in the playoff?
It really depends on how bad they beat up on each other is going to be the biggest question. If Oregon can go through it and only lose one game and win the Pac-12, I think they'll have a really good shot, just because, win-loss, conference champion, it's hard to keep them out. But it just kind of also depends on what else happens throughout college football this year. I think that they have a legit chance, but it's still can they go throughout the season with only one loss? I think anything more than one loss, they have no shot.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think because of what the ACC looks like, they could do something similar or not dominant enough. And the Big 12 is pretty wide open that I think that at least one team will get in this year from the Pac-12, especially with the quarterbacks that they have. I think they will. My thought is it'll probably be Oregon this year. And then how weird would it be if the Big 10 got one, SEC got one, and then the Pac-12 got two? Wild to even think about. I don't think it'll happen. But, dude, wouldn't that be weird? And then it's the last year of the Pac-12. Wouldn't that be just the best storyline?
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy.
College football has done weird things, man. All right, so let's move on because we both did you pick Oregon? That's what you did.
Yeah.
Too, right? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and pick our SEC conference. Let's break it down real quick. This is a renewing team. Like, how many of these quarterbacks are brand new this year? Georgia Bulldogs, preseason ranked number 1, back-to-back champions, new quarterback. Tennessee, Hendon Hooker, gone. But we've seen a little bit of what they have coming up, and he looks ready to just, all right, plug and play. Let's go. Alabama, new quarterback as well. They're still not quite sure on who it's going to be, and I think that has some concerns, just like what we've seen in even Ohio State. Ole Miss still has good quarterback depth. I'm just not sure how good they are going to be. LSU, they're one of the best three loss teams last year was LSU, and they are a top 5 predicted team this year. So a lot of talent on this team. Arkansas, remember when they were top 10 last year?
Yeah.
Kentucky, wild. Anyway, got all these. Oh yeah, we got Spencer Rattler in this conference too. So we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, this is a very interesting SEC this year because, yeah, you're Georgia. You won back-to-back national championships. Now you're bringing in a quarterback and never played. I mean, Carson Beck, can he replace what Stetson Bennett did? And a lot of people are going to go, oh, well, Bennett wasn't that great. Look at what he did last year. Bennett was
really great last year.
Really good.
Played himself into getting drafted.
Yeah, I mean, and has looked really good during the preseason. Yes, it's preseason. Yeah. But you're replacing a lot of guys. I mean, you're bringing you did bring in 2 great dynamic wide receivers and Dominic Levitt and Rod Thompson, but you're replacing Jalen Carter, you're replacing Nolan Smith, you're replacing Keely Ringo, Christopher Smith. Those guys, it's next man up, but this is a team that has been built this way the last couple of years where they lose a bunch of guys in the draft and you think, there's probably going to be some fall off, and there's just that dominant. So it really kind of hangs in the balance on Carson Beck. Can he just be what Stetson Bennett was? If he's just what Stetson Bennett was, they're probably fine, but there's still questions. And I think out of all the big, quarterback questions this year, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, I think Tennessee is the one that I don't worry about as much because it's Josh Heupel has such a good quarterback system that he can really just plug a guy in and they're going to play good. And I'm not the biggest, Joe Milton fan. I think, we saw what he could do in Michigan and it wasn't great. And we're like, okay, I don't know. But we saw what he did at the end of the season whenever Hendon Hooker went down and he took over and he was just basically Hendon Hooker from the get-go. And so I'm not completely worried about that. I think Alabama's the one I'm most worried about because you bring in a brand new offensive system, but you're not sure, is it Buckner? Is it Milroe? Is it Simpson? You got big questions there. And then you're replacing a lot on defense also. I mean, Branch, Jordan Battle, Will Anderson, Henry To'o. And then on top of that,
they've done this. This isn't the first time that they've had to replace this, and they've continually pipelined it, man.
But the thing is they've always really kind of had an idea who the quarterback was going to be next. And this year they don't. And they don't have really that dynamic guys on the outside wide receiver wise. They at least will have the stable of running backs, but the offensive line to me is one of the biggest concerns on this team because they had the 123rd ranked offensive line in blown run block rate, 110th in penalties per game, 78th in pressure rate allowed, and 60th in stuff rate. The offensive line, which is usually a staple for Alabama, the last few years has just been absolutely anemic. And I don't think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, they're winning. The offensive line has been so bad. And now you're bringing in a new coordinator and quarterbacks that you're just kind of like, we'll throw one out there and hope one of them succeeds.
That's why our boy Casey Poe's going there so he can help turn it around. Okay.
Yeah. They need that Casey Poe in there. Yep.
I look at this, and here's the thing I'm talking about with Alabama. Their schedule this year is hard. There's the Tennessee schedule is not as hard, but it's still difficult. Georgia has a cakewalk schedule again, dude. It's so annoying looking at this schedule. And I say that I know they're playing the SEC, but you tell me what game do you think is a loss? I got one right now on their calendar. They got UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB, at Auburn, Kentucky, at Vandy, doesn't matter. Florida, Missouri, Mississippi, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, and of course Georgia Tech. What loss do you think they got?
Tennessee's the only team that has any chance.
Only team that has a legitimate shot to win. They're the only team with a legitimate quarterback outside of maybe Kentucky. I mean, Leary could potentially put them in a position to do that, and they're at home. But come on, with one of the best recruiting classes, I don't care who the quarterback is. They should be able to walk this team into at least a one loss. And here's the thing. You look at that and like, okay, well, then Tennessee would have the tiebreaker. So then I'm playing this out. Tennessee on paper. Here we go. They got Alabama. Okay, that's going to be a good game, right? They got Georgia already. We talked about that one. So that's two of those games right there. And they also get A&M, Carolina, UConn, and Missouri. And so they don't have as many, but they have two of those tough games. And so then if they lose to Alabama, but they beat Georgia, so now it goes to Alabama, could potentially be the tiebreaker then they would be in the SEC championship and not Tennessee because of the divisions.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, this is going to be a wild SEC because then you still have LSU. And what's LSU going to do? What if LSU wins?
I'm telling you, I think LSU to me is the team I think that has the best chance to beat Georgia this year in the SEC.
I hope so.
I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan. I love Jaden Daniels for a long time. He took a big step forward last year as a passer, and then doing the draft content for the draft, I watched Stetson Bennett, Hendon Hooker, Bryce Young, their film, and there was one guy that stuck out to me the whole time out of every single film when I'm watching these quarterbacks that are going to be taken in the draft. And it was Harold Perkins, the linebacker from LSU. The kid is just absolute chaos. He causes havoc. He reminds me of Micah Parsons. He can come off the edge. He can play inside. The dude has the potential at the end of this year to be a top 2, top 3 best players in college football. He causes that much havoc on the defensive side. And then you bring in Mason Smith, who was a big-time recruit, tore the ACL. He's returning this year. I think this team has the capability, if they can figure things out in the secondary this year, to be the biggest contender to Georgia for the SEC title this year.
This is the conference right now that has the most talent. I mean, if I ask those questions about, hey, what if this team this conference get 2 teams, right? USC, Oregon. You get the Big Ten with Ohio State, and Michigan. This is the one that if anyone's going to get 2, you look at this on paper and you're like, my goodness, the SEC. And I'm not saying this because, he's going to the SEC next year. I'm looking at this knowing that the Big 12 is not the same as this top-heavy conference. Because let's be honest, we look at Mississippi State, you look at Vanderbilt, you look at Kentucky, you look at Ole Miss, and a lot of these teams, it's middle of the pack. Arkansas, how are they different, than Missouri and Kansas State? They're just not. So you look at this, and this is going to be a great conference to watch this year. And here's the thing, you're right, Harold Perkins, 7.5 sacks last year, 3 forced fumbles. This dude, you talk about wreaking havoc. This dude, watch out for him. They have 2 electric players, both on offense and on defense, and I think you could potentially see some sparks fly when it comes to award season, which we're about to transition to award season. That would have been great if we hadn't already. We got to make our picks for the college football playoff. So if we had, it would have been great. So all right, so let's go ahead and do this. You got to pick your 4 teams, but before maybe we do this, we don't think that there's going to be a group of 5 making it, right? I mean, Just be
I
honest.
don't think there's
So,
any.
if after you pick the 4, just pick the team that you think is the most likely to somehow sneak in there. So, your dark horse plus the actual 4.
So my 4, I have 2 out of the SEC. I've got Georgia. I've got LSU. I think those 2 teams will be in the playoffs. I've got Michigan. Then this is the 4th spot was a difficult one to pick because you look at it and you go, Oregon 1 loss. They absolutely could be in there. The Big 12 champ, if they can go 1 loss, they have absolutely have a chance to be in there. I'm gonna go with Clemson. I think they run the table in the ACC, go undefeated, and they get that final spot, even with a weak ACC. I think those are my 4 teams. My dark horse is Notre Dame.
Ooh.
I love Sam Hartman. I mean, if you've listened to us over the last months, I think Sam Hartman doesn't get enough credit. And one thing that they have missed is a quarterback that can go out there and just win you games. Sam Hartman is that guy. And we know Freeman's going to have the defense right, even though they've lost guys. The defense is going to be right. The big question is, can they beat Ohio State? They beat Ohio State. I think it sets up perfect for them to make a big run through this and have a legit chance at making to the playoffs because I think they are better than USC. I think Sam Hartman, if it was Tyler Buckner or Drew Pine or something like it was last year, I wouldn't give them that, benefit of the doubt. But I think if they had Sam Hartman last year, they beat USC. And that's where I think the quarterback play is the biggest factor for me when it comes to Notre Dame is that I think the defense will be good, and I think Sam Hartman is going to be great for them, and they're going to have a chance to maybe 1 loss and still have a chance to get in.
Okay.
That's my dark horse.
Well, you're gonna like this. I went 2 SEC, 1 Big Ten, and 1 Pac-12. I do think Oregon has the opportunity to actually win that conference, and with Bo Nix be able to do it, make a play, probably the number 3 team, and then it would be Georgia, Michigan would be the other 2 that win the conference, I think, and then Tennessee's the one other team that they don't even play in their conference championship possibly, and they still find a way to get in because of how good that offense plays. I think they have a chance to do that this year because maybe Alabama loses 2 games and they lose in the conference championship maybe to Georgia. I think it's gonna be a mess for the committee to figure it out at the end of the year if everything plays as we think it will on paper. But that is what I'm picturing right now. I think that's an electric one right there. So I got them all listed. I've got them on the show notes, so we're going to keep receipts just like we did for my Cardinals World Series pick. All right, let's move on real quick. We got Heisman. Oh, I didn't do a dark horse team, did I?
Nope. Who's your dark horse?
Okay, so I have. Here's the thing: there was so much transition this year. I'm not going to pick Notre Dame because you already picked them. But with so much transition from one conference to the next one, I think it would be incredibly fun to see the team that I think a lot of people love, which is UTSA. There's 0 chance, right? There's 0 chance. But if somehow they go like undefeated and then they're like knocking on the door at top 10, wouldn't that be fun? Everyone loves watching them, so why not?
Frank Harris is a great quarterback.
I'm telling you, man. There's 0 chance.
Yeah.
But I think that would be fun. It'd be like it's a different version of what they used to do in Boise State back in the day. So
yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's move on. We got Heisman candidates. Who are you picking as your Heisman favorite?
I mean, I think Caleb Williams is absolutely the Heisman favorite, but I feel like they lose 3 or 4 games. They won't be able to give it to him just based off of everything they've done in the past.
Yeah.
You lose, that many games, you don't win the Heisman. I'm going with my boy, Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I should have just gone. I almost went ahead and wrote that one.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised how high his odds have actually went up. That he was sitting somewhere around like 5th or 6th highest odds a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Well, I think that he takes that next step forward as a passer. We know the legs. He's a dynamic runner. I think he takes that initial step forward as a quarterback throwing the football, and we see him have a Hendon Hooker type season.
Yeah, and my thing is, I think the person that's going to put the best numbers is going to be Caleb Williams. The next one
Yep.
that's going to maybe the best storyline this year of what he's done with the team, possibly Jaden Daniels. And then I'll look at the other teams that put themselves in position to win. And I really want to say Bo Nix. He had so much love next year. I just don't know if he has it, but he's going to be the guy I'm going to choose. It's going to be Bo Nix. I should have picked him as my dark horse because I think we know it's probably Caleb Williams, but I'm going to go with Bo Nix.
Yep. I think that's a very solid pick. He's going to put up the numbers in the Pac-12, and it's just they probably we both predict they're going to win, so he's not going to have the losses that you go, okay, well, you're out of the running for it. So no, I think that's a solid pick for Bo Nix as being Heisman Trophy winner. Caleb Williams probably should because he probably put up the most numbers, but the loss factor will weigh into it, and he won't be considered because of that.
Yeah. All right. So do you have a dark horse?
Yeah, Sam Hartman.
Okay. I'm not surprised, but
I wanted to pick my other guy that we have talked about in Harold Perkins, but we know defense. They just can't. They don't give enough love. We've seen a few defensive guys, recently make it, to New York. I would love to see that, but it's hard to see that happening. I almost picked JJ McCarthy, but I went with Sam Hartman because I picked him as my dark horse to make the playoffs. If that's the case, if they do make the playoffs, that means Sam Hartman had an incredible year, and he put up the big numbers that we know Sam Hartman can put up.
Yeah. Well, do you think that, and I think that's a good way to think about it. Do you think, when was the last time that we had a wide receiver win? Was it Devontae Smith?
Devontae Smith, yeah.
Picking receiver. I'm actually going to go ahead and pick Marvin Harrison Jr. because as a dark horse, he would, outside of quarterback, he's the one guy I think that if he has a monster season and somehow Ohio State competes down the line, it's going to have to be through him. And he is by far my favorite wide receiver this year. I think he's the best, hands down, not even close. Like, it's unfair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, the dude is a next generation type wide receiver.
Yeah.
We're talking that if he was in this draft this year, he would have been a top 10 pick, would have absolutely been the best wide receiver. He'll be the best wide receiver next year and has potential to go top 2, top 5. At least I think top 5 right now is a lock for Marvin Harrison Jr. next year.
Yeah.
Top 2, depending on how the draft picks, fall, is not out of the realm of possibility. The guy is that dynamic of a wide receiver. And yeah, if Ohio State is going to have any chance, he's going to have a big year. And the one thing for him is that you've got 3 incredible wide receivers. Is Ekbuka or Fleming going to steal it? But they didn't really last year, even, so yeah, I think that's a great pick. I would like to see something other than a quarterback, but we just know quarterbacks are the ones that win.
They dominate, for sure.
If we're going to throw running back in there, I think Blake Corum, but then again, Donovan Edwards probably cut into that. So it's kind of hard to look at anyone other than a quarterback. And then I think probably Marvin Harrison, out of any other offensive guys, probably has the best shot.
Yeah. And then your boy at LSU could possibly get it on the defensive side if he has a monster season.
Yeah.
But again, we know it's happening.
We know defense won't get it, but
yeah,
I think that he can put up that season where you got quarterback questions throughout college football. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. Maybe we have a season like that where a defensive guy at least makes it to New York again, like an Aiden Hutchinson or a Manti Te'o, and at least has his name up there. And I don't think it happens, but there's the possibility.
Yeah. So surprise team let's go surprise team that's not in the top 25 right now that you think could be at the end of the season.
I think Texas Tech is the only one I could really find that I think has a legit chance, because I think they have a possibility of winning the Big 12. To me, it wasn't as cut and dry as it has been the last few years. I've always had one team I looked at and I go, they're just not getting enough love. They have a chance to really sneak up there and make a name for themselves. I think Texas Tech, with how wide open the Big 12 is, I think to me was the only team I could find that I really thought had a realistic chance to come close to making it to the top 10.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with an absolute dark horse surprise. If they ended, and this is what I'm saying, number 25, right? You come off of last year's success, which people didn't expect. Let me pull it back up here real quick. I'm gonna blow someone's mind. Do you have any idea who I'm gonna pick?
No.
This team made a bowl game last year, and we talked about them. They ended the year 6-7. Huh?
Kansas.
No, not Kansas.
No?
I'm going to go ahead and pick UConn. And I think it's mostly because I think they could have a record at the end of the year with their schedule. They got NC State at the beginning of the year and Duke. And then outside of that in Tennessee, they really have a very winnable schedule. And if they can somehow push together all those wins, I think you could see them sneak there. And I think that'd be a really cool storyline. So I'm going to pick them as the surprise team to be top 25. But because I honestly think that would be the surprise one. Tim, homer man. Tim just put in the chat at OSU. You're picking Oklahoma State. Is that what you're saying? That's awesome.
You're saying, I think Tim's saying top 10 in the Big 12.
What do you mean?
No,
top 10 in the Big 12. Oh, man.
That's still pushing it for me right now.
I love it. Yeah, Tim also did ask the question. We can hit this one real quick. With probably two teams, so this is the last year of 4 teams that make the college football playoff. I think this is a good question because next year it's going to be 8 teams and the top 4 get a bye. Or no, 12.
No, it's 12.
12 teams, excuse me, and the top 4 get a bye. That's what I meant. But they did talk about it. SEC commissioner himself said that we might need to look at the playoff system itself because of things like the Pac-12 and the championship team that's locked in with that one getting an automatic bid. Of course, just like the rest of the college football world, it's a rotating, whatever. It's going to happen. Then it will change. But at least we're going to have more than just 4 teams, so it'll be more exciting. The bowl games will be a little different, but
yeah, I think now we'll see the possibility not 2 teams, but 3 teams making it from a conference because now you've got 12 teams. I mean, the SEC every year could have 3 teams in there and maybe 4, depending on how well. If you have 4 teams that are 11, they have 2 that go undefeated or 1 loss, and another 2 that have only 2 losses. They have a realistic chance of making, it's just the way now it's going to be. Yeah, they're going to have to do something because you can't give an automatic qualifier to the Pac-12 if they bring in the Mountain West or whatever, because they're just not playing the same type of competition that the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10 or the SEC are playing. I don't think you can consider them as a Power 5 school.
Yeah. Well, and looking at it, and people are going to be like, well, then why would you want to play? If 3 teams are going to make it, then or 4 teams, then why would you want to even play in your conference championship game? The bye week. The bye week will definitely come into play. You don't want to play that extra game and have that potential for injury and all the other stuff. So bye week will matter big time come next year. So how? One more great question in the chat. Here we go. I'm going to put it on the screen for you. Realignments. How does it change the dynamic of the sports besides baseball? I think that's a great question, especially when you look at basketball. The SEC is getting with Texas and OU. They're not prime basketball schools, but they're big recruiting ones, and they've been great with softball. I think this can make the SEC the best conference in softball. I'm just going to throw it. They're already probably one of the best conferences when it comes to baseball. Not saying that because LSU won this year, but they continually have some of the best teams when it comes to baseball too. Yeah, no, they probably were the best conference for softball, even with Oklahoma being as dominant as they were. You look at the Alabamas, Floridas, Kentuckys, the Auburns, the Georgias. They've always, the LSU. They've had good, teams throughout the last 20 years in college softball. So yeah, they probably recently are the best. But now you throw Oklahoma in there, and even Texas, who has come on softball wise. Yeah, basketball, Texas, as of right now, is a big get for them because Texas has been the last couple of years. It's been really good basketball. OU, that's kind of to be determined that way. But, you look at the Big 12 now, you bring in Arizona, who is a blue blood basketball, playing against Kansas now all the time. I don't know how much really it affects, the Big 10. UCLA is a big get for USC's been a solid basketball team in recent years. So I don't know about other sports, UCLA will be good for softball. Baseball, I don't think it really that matters a whole lot. UCLA hasn't really been great in recent years. Oregon,
they're kind of on all. I mean, they're a good softball program. Washington's a good softball program. So yeah, I mean, it definitely strengthens things, in certain aspects. But then again, there's some where it just, it's just adding another team.
Yeah. It's a great point. So last question we have about college football before we wrap up the show, unless I missed anything, was top 10 team that you think won't be top 10 team at the end of the year. Is there one? Well,
I mean,
how about this? Not top 10, but not top 25. Like, oof,
okay, I say there's going to be a few, but no. Okay, not top 25. I'm going to say Penn State.
I figured Penn State. So you think they're unranked at the end of the year?
I think out of all those 10 teams in the top 10, they are the one that I could see. I mean, you have a quarterback that has really not taken a whole lot of snaps. You lost a few guys on the defensive side. I think that they're the team that in the top 10, I can see falling the furthest. I think USC is a team. I don't know if they will go unranked just because they were probably going to lose to three of those three losses are going to be to ranked teams. Yeah. So they probably won't fall, super far. They may get down close to the 20s, but I think Penn State is a team that you could see them lose to Maryland and maybe lose to Illinois, or, if they had to play Wisconsin, or I don't know exactly the schedule, but they could lose to teams that aren't highly ranked like USC is going to probably lose to.
Yeah. This is tough. I think there's no Texas A&M up there this year, which a surprise. But you look at it, and if I were to play it out and say, well, Wisconsin's going to beat Ohio State and somehow Penn State's going to beat them and Michigan's going to beat them, then you'd be looking at a team that definitely disappointed this year, even if they lost to Notre Dame. That'd be a 4-loss Ohio State team. That's everything going wrong. So I'm not going to say that. Instead, I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm going to say Florida State's the team that disappoints the most this year and potentially is outside the top 25 at the end of the year.
No, yeah, that's absolutely a great pick too. Yeah. Those were the two teams that I looked at really, and I thought, USC was another team that I threw in there. I thought there's a chance because they could end up with 4 losses, but depending on who are those 4 losses to, or if they're to the 4 ranked teams in top 25, you ain't gonna fall a whole lot. I mean,
you can't imagine losing every game. You're not OU in 2022. I mean,
you never know. You never know with that defense.
I know, that's true. Well, we hope you all enjoyed the show. This was a ton of fun, and I cannot wait till Sunday. So we got 2 games this upcoming Saturday, so you can watch those. But stay tuned because we're going to be breaking down the predictions for the NFL as we head into NFL season kicking off also within just a couple of weeks, and then some more fantasy football breakdowns of an entire draft here from the W Sports Podcast League. So we appreciate y'all joining. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or whatever in the world. Spotify, that's the other one. The other one you could also do is please go follow us on social media. The W Sports Podcast, you can find us wherever it is, whether it's X, Linktree is what it's called, right? Linktree.
Well, Linktree just kind of links all the.
So just
has all the links there. Yeah,
just go to Linktree, follow us, and make sure you share the show with someone else. We greatly appreciate you. This is the most fun that we have talking about sports every single Monday because you guys are a part of it, dropping questions in the chat. So please stick around, come with us, and join the chat next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's football season, and we're 2 podcasts away to 100.
That's mind-blowing.
100 episodes.
We hit 100.
Yeah, and then the way it's going to happen is, we started the podcast out talking, breaking down a fantasy football draft, and 100 somehow is going to land on us breaking down a fantasy football draft. So, I mean, it was just meant to be. So, yeah, stick around. You want to be part of the 100th episode.
Yeah. So we appreciate y'all. Till then, we will see you all next week.
See ya.